students, welcome to Tarun IS. Today we will be discussing MCQs based on the current affairs of 14th of October 2022. So let's start with first MCQ of the day. The first question says the term ACE2 is talked about in the context of. Now basically this ACE2 means the angiotensin converting enzyme. Now, I will not go into the details of this angiotensin converting enzyme because there is a very long pathway and also a mechanism known as the RAS mechanism, which is used by the kidney and the liver so as to balance the osmolarity of the blood and to maintain the rate of urine flow. All right. However, it was observed during the COVID-19 that this ACE2 receptors present on the membrane of the cell, they act as the receptor for the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Therefore, ACE2 was talked about in the context of the spread of the viral diseases. Alright, so now let's move on to the second question. The second question says, bisphenol A is a cause of concern, is a structural key component in the manufacture of which of the following kinds of plastics? Now basically this bisphenol A, this is the previous year question, and it is used in large quantities primarily in the production of the polycarbonate plastics and the epoxy resins. So basically bisphenol A is used in the production of the polycarbonate plastics and epoxy resins. So B will be our answer. Now let's see the third question. With reference to recent development regarding recombinant vector vaccines, consider the following statements. The first statement says that the genetic engineering is applied in the development of these vaccines. Bacteria and viruses are used as vectors. Now, if we consider the recombinant vector vaccines, now what do we mean by recombinant vector vaccines? Now, basically, we take the DNA. Suppose this is the DNA, and which we want to be transferred into some other cell. This is cell 1 and this is cell 2. All right. Now we take DNA from this cell and we want to transfer this DNA to this cell. This DNA cannot be transferred or cannot be transmitted as it is. We need a vector. Let's take the example of the mosquito. Mosquito acts as a vector in spreading malaria. It does not causes malaria, but it only aids the spread of the disease. So therefore, vector is something which only aids. It only is a carrier. Alright, so therefore, we will need a vector. Sometimes we can have the bacteria as a vector. Sometimes we can have viruses as the vector. Sometimes human has artificially designed vectors which are known as the plasmids. Alright, so these acts as vector in order to transfer gene from one cell to the another, and this is called as the genetic engineering. So therefore, yes, genetic engineering is applied in the development of these vaccines, and yes, bacteria and viruses are used as vectors. So therefore, both the statements will be our correct answer. Hence, C will be our correct option. Now let's move on to the fourth question. Which of the following in Indian polity is an essential feature that indicates that it is a federal in character? When I say federal, what do I mean by federal? Federal means there is a nation, there is a state, or there is a country, and it has got independent subunits or independent units. In case of the India, the states derive their power directly from the constitution, and they are not under any subordination of the center or the union government. Alright, so federal character means that the units of the governance have their power separated. There is a separation of the power. So let's look at the options. The federal character. There is independence of judiciary. Yes, the independence of judiciary is a federal character. integrated judiciary is a unitary character. So yes, it is one of the features of the federal character, but we will choose the most appropriate feature. The union, sorry, the union legislatures has elected representatives from constitution units. Union legislature has elected representatives from constitution units. That means the existence of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. This means that Indian polity is bicameral polity. Bicameralism is there. All right. The union cabinet can have elected representative from regional parties. Yes, definitely. Why not? If there is a coalition government, then yes, the union cabinet can have elected representative from the regional parties. The fundamental rights are enforceable by court of law. The fundamental rights are enforceable by court of law. Yes, this is true, but this does not fall under the federal character. All right. Now we have to choose the essential feature. The essential feature is that of the what is the essential feature when it comes to the Indian polity? And the essential feature would be, in my opinion, the representation. In my opinion, it would be the representation. That means the legislature will have representation from the constitution units. It will have elected representatives. Independence of judiciary is also a federal character. So which one will be the most appropriate or most close to the essential feature? This will be the answer A, that is independence of judiciary. Because this feature we can observe even in the country which have more centralized system, like Canada. Has more centralized system. Still they have representation from their provinces. All right. So according to me, independence of judiciary will be the essential federal character. Now let's move on to the fifth question. The fifth question says, with reference to Indian judiciary, consider the following statements. Any retired judge of the Supreme Court of India can be called back to sit and act as a Supreme Court judge by the CJI with prior permission of the President of India. The second statement says, a High Court in India has the power to review its own judgment as the Supreme Court does. Now, if we consider the first statement, that any retired judge can be called back to act as a Supreme Court judge. Now this is the correct statement, that retired judge can be called back to sit as a Supreme Court judge with the similar privileges as given is to the sitting judge of the Supreme Court. But CJI has to take the prior permission from the President. This is according to the Article 128. Now High Court, definitely just like Supreme Court, can act as they can review their own judgment. This is according to Article 226. So therefore, both the statements will be correct. Now let's see what has been asked. Which of the following statement is correct? Both the statements are correct. Now let's move on to the sixth question. Which one of the following factors constitutes the best safeguard of liberty in a liberal democracy? When we say liberal democracy, and the factors that constitutes the safeguard of liberty. Now let's see option one by one and then we will choose the correct answer. A committed judiciary, centralization of power, elected government, or separation of power. For any country to safeguard the liberty of its citizen, a judiciary need to have independence. Now here a committed judiciary. Like, committed to what? When, if we say that independent judiciary, then yes, independent judiciary will ensure the fundamental rights of the citizen. It will ensure that every citizen has access to the constitutional remedies. But the best, because the best has been asked for a liberal democracy. Centralization of power is not the feature of liberal democracy. There is separation of powers, but we have to choose the best option. Elected government. Elected government may not be a safeguard. All right. Sometimes we know the election must be fair and free in order to have an elected government which safeguards the liberty. But in accordance with the theory of liberal democracy, then it must be the separation of power which ensures the liberty not only of the citizens but also of each tier of the government, whether it is the union government, state government, or the local governments. So I think this was it for today. So we'll see you tomorrow. Have a nice day. Thank you for watching Tarun IS.